So I made an image editor and I also edited this video's thumbnail in the image editor. This video is not the main idea behind why I made this in the first place, but it is a cool addition, I guess. So the question is why? Why would I go through all of this trouble of writing my own image editor? What purpose does it have? What problems does it solve? So a bit of story time here. Back in 2019, when I started programming, I did not have a personal computer back then. To be fair, I was still in like middle school. So yeah, I got at some point my first personal computer and I did not have a Windows license for it, so I started with Linux. My dad used Ubuntu Linux for a while, so I naturally picked that. So yeah, anyways, I used Ubuntu Linux for maybe about half a year before I finally got a Windows license. I know you can install Windows without activating it, but it was official. So then that was 2020. I had Windows 10, everyone's favorite operating system after Windows XP, of course. And I was using it for about until, let's say, summer of 2025, so summer of last year. Because, well, Windows 10 support was ending soon, and I'm not really happy with the direction in which Windows 11 is heading, so I looked at all of the applications that I used and realized that I could technically go back to Linux and be a bit more happy there. Windows was also, for some reason, very unstable on my machine. So that was also one of the reasons to switch off from Windows to something else. So then last year I first dual booted Linux on my laptop, then I completely reinstalled the operating system on my laptop to be only Linux, and then I switched this computer that I primarily use also to Linux, the same version and everything. And now we get to the important part, which was the tools that I have been using. So some apps that do not have native Linux builds work quite well under Wine, so I'm currently using Wine for all of them. But there are exactly two apps that do not have a Linux version and that do also not work well under Wine. The first one being my IDE of choice, which was Visual Studio Community 2019. The version isn't important, but yeah, in general, Visual Studio regular without Visual Studio Code. So the regular Visual Studio does not work under Linux. Visual Studio comes with a Windows compiler. It would make no sense for me to use a Windows compiler for a Linux machine. So the alternative that I picked is CLion from JetBrains. Since I'm a student for the last year and a half, I also have a free educational license that came in clutch since CLion was not free for non-commercial use until I think a few months ago. That is the replacement for the IDE I'm using. The second app, which does not have a native Linux build or does not work under Wine, is, well, you guessed it, an image editor. So for a while, for 5 years, I've been using Paint.net, that is a Windows application for editing images, pixel art, and so on. Paint.net does not currently have a Linux build, or are there any plans for it to support Linux in near future? So yeah, that is my main reason of making my own image editor. Second reason is I'd like to learn something new, so an image editor seems like a fun project. It does not seem all that complicated to make. It just, well, takes time. And the third reason you could say would be to make a cool video with the title and thumbnail connected to the editor very closely. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, when it comes to Paint.net, yes, it does not have a Linux build. Yes, it does not work under Wine. It can work in a virtual machine, so I've been using it that way if it's really necessary. And also there are some alternatives, of course, to it. Mainly I've seen the image editor called Pinta that is based on the work done by Paint.net, as it says in the credits. Though from the time I've spent using Pinta, I've only really noticed the flaws it has. Like, for example, if you have a not even that large image and you just try to draw pixels in the center of it, it lags a lot. I'm not sure why. It's not usable in that state. It's also, I've had a few crashes. Not that my app is going to be any better. I'd like to make it better though. I've experienced crashes. I've experienced some unintuitive stuff. Like, for example, when I zoom into the image and I'd like to, for example, edit the top left corner of the image, the top left corner of the image will, when zoomed in, always be in the top left corner of my screen, which is a bit annoying. I don't know, I dislike that. Paint.net gives you the ability to drag the top left corner or any corner into the center of the screen. That's also what I made my image editor do. Small things like that, they add up, and yeah, I decided to, well, make my own image editor. Plus a bonus if you make it yourself is, well, it's your own code, you know what it does, you can add whatever feature your heart desires later on. So that is, in short, the history of how we got here, why I'm making an image editor. The next question is, what will I be using to make the program itself? So since 2022, I've been working on a level editor that goes by the name of Zombies Level Editor. That program is written in C++, SFML, and I'mGUI, which is a popular UI rendering library. And so when I started, it was all very new to me, and the design language, the look of the whole app was it varied a lot but with time. And so now, 4 years later, in 2026, I'd say the design has matured a bit. I'm no longer making huge changes in like themes and, I don't know, button design and so on. So the idea is for the image editor to be based on the work that I've done so far. So things that can be applied to an image editor. Of course, level editor has something like particles that makes no sense in an image editor. So things that make sense, like multi-language support that Zla supports for a while now, then shortcuts and maybe themes. There are a few things like that. So that is essentially what I did first, and what you can see here. We have the full basic menu. There is also the settings menu that looks very similar to the one from the level editor. And so that is where it all started. I actually started working on this last summer. I think I worked on it for about 2 weeks, and then progress kind of stopped until the start of this year. After the main UI design, I made the basic windows, so the basic canvas window, and I also added this smooth zoom that I don't see many editors using, but I really like that. So, I mean, the app should have a few of my stuff. I'm not just straight up copying everything. After adding the basic Zla components to Galaxy, which I haven't mentioned yet, but my image editor will be called Galaxy. Wow, very cool. I added a basic canvas in which you can see the image, just the basic window. And I've added basic pencil support, or the most basic tool there is, to just draw pixels. You can see when I drag my mouse quickly that it kind of just draws single pixels. That is because I don't have infinite frame rate. One frame we're on 1 pixel, and the other frame we could be 10 or maybe 100 pixels if the image editor is for some reason really laggy. We could be many pixels away, so I will need to eventually interpolate between these two positions and draw everything in between. Next up was the color picker. So I mostly used what the ImGUI library offers, a basic color picker. I think it does the job, it's good enough. After that, I started working on some optimizations. I'll try to simplify this as much as possible, but the image can, let's say, be of any size, and it does not make sense for me to render the whole image and also to have the whole image texture on the GPU, not to mention that the GPU has its own limits on how large the textures can be. For example, I think my GPU has a maximum texture size of 16,000 by 16,000, so technically if you created a larger image than that, it could not fit in one chunk on the GPU. So I splitted the editor logic to work into chunks. So now you can render only chunks that you can see. That can be seen in an exaggerated effect here. And also I've added the low quality textures, which the user will see when zoomed out far enough. This can also be seen in an exaggerated effect here. But yeah, this is for performance reasons, and also when zooming out far enough, the native, I like to call them the native size textures, are deleted to free up memory. This is a bit wasteful, but then again you save a lot of VRAM for that, and it's quite quick to re-render them again if you zoom out, if you zoom in again. Next up, I've added the pencil drag interpolation things, so now there are no longer pixels, but there are lines that you actually draw. And with that, we have, I guess, the bare basics of an image editor. Next up, I added a brush, an eraser, a color picker, just starting to add more and more features that your classic image editor has. And then I stopped for a few months, so that was about, I think, in September, the last 2 weeks of September, the university started and I had other stuff to do. So the project was kind of on hold until the start of this year, when I again picked up the project and started working on it. So here I did not record a lot of stuff, but I think a few weeks of work later, you can see a whole bunch of stuff that I've added here. So we have a layer picker finally. The image editor now has multiple layers. You can add new layers, merge layers, swap layers, and change their opacities, blend modes, a lot of stuff. I've added a selection tool, which was initially very buggy. I'm still not sure what is the best way to do this. Currently, I just have, similar to how you have a color buffer, I also have a selection buffer, and that is also in pixels, probably a bit wasteful. Initially, I started with just defining rectangles for selections, and then I tried to do a circle select and realized that it won't work that way, so I redesigned it to use pixels. That's how circle selection works. I also added resizing the canvas, resizing the whole image, scaling up or scaling down. For resizing, I'm using STB image resize 2. SFML internally uses STB image for loading and saving images. I also at that point used STB image write, simply because it gives me a bit more features. For example, SFML does not offer you a way to save JPEGs with a quality scale. But if you use just STB image write yourself, then you can set a quality level for JPEGs. I also added a bucket fill, which uses the most basic depth first search algorithm. Really inefficient. I'd like to swap it out with something better one day. And you can also now, with the selection added, you can copy paste between images. And that was basically it for then. One interesting thing is when you see these diagonal lines in the selection, you probably had no idea that these actually behind the scenes look like just a few moving rectangles. So the way I made that effect is I rendered many vertices arranged in triangles and just moved them with a transform over time, and then just mod that value, offset value, with some other value to reset it back to its original position. And I'm using stencil buffers to only render the selected parts. So that's how you get the illusion that there are actual lines moving across. But yeah, it's just snapping back to the original position, but you can't tell, and it works quite well. Next up, I added gradients, the most basic version of it. So you pick 2 points, you pick 2 colors, and it draws a gradient between them. Nothing special, but yeah, I'd like to also improve that maybe in the future. There's also an interesting bug that happens because of division by 0 when you set both the start and end positions to the same position. And finally, I've added move pixels as an option, so you can select pixels and then move them around. This was honestly the most out of all of these tools that you can see. This was the most complicated tool, probably due to the way the code was written. I had a lot of issues with moving pixels around. And also I added a transform image option with which you can select a portion, rotate it. That is currently the only way to rotate an image, by a non-90 degree, 180 degree angle. And well, we are basically at the present right now. So that is all I've done. That is all I plan to do for the initial version. And so I think now would be a great time to actually use what I've made to make a thumbnail for this video. So I'll switch over to the computer screen and we can get started there. Okay, so time to make the actual thumbnail. I'll choose a canvas that is 1080p, let's say. All right, and so the plan is to have the bottom layer as some sort of gradient, and then I'll paste some images over it. The images in question are, so this is a screenshot from one of the clips for the video, and the other thing is the logo of the app. Okay, so where do we start? Let's start from the gradients. So I will choose 2 colors, let's say maybe a darker-ish blue and a darker-ish purple, and we will draw a gradient. Okay, and that looks quite nice. Maybe a bit more, maybe a bit lighter blue, so like that, and we will click on finish. Okay, so that is the base layer. I'll make another one, and this will be for the logo, which we will copy over like that. We will set it over here, and let's maybe increase the size a bit to, let's say, 450 pixels, like that. Okay, finish again, and so that will be the base thing. Now let's also add this image. Okay, so I'd like to crop off the top portion over here. So for that, we will do a box select starting from over here and then drag it down to here. Okay, we will go image, crop to selection. There we go. And now this image is slightly too large to fit over here. So we will downscale it. Control R. Resize, let's say, I don't know, 720p. That seems fine. Okay, and that looks good. Let's copy that and let's go over here, another layer, and I will paste it in. There we go. And now drag it. Of course, this is kind of slow since this is still all happening in one thread. That is a plan to fix or change to add multi-threading in near future. But for now, it's good enough. Okay, that seems, I'd say, quite okay. We'll click on finish again. Okay, So these are the base things that we have. I'll just save this in case anything goes wrong. So file name will be thumbnail1. PNG is fine. Let's click on OK. Okay, there we go. So that should be saved. Now, okay, so what should I do next? Let's try to add an arrow. So I'll choose a brush and I'll need a larger arrow. So radius, let's say 15. Maybe a bit more, 25. Okay, so I'll make an arrow that points something like this. Color, let's stick to the theme. So the logo has a bit of blue, the background has a bit of blue. Let's color it a bit more white blue. Okay, and now I have to be careful with what I do, since there is also no undo or redo. That being a more complex feature, I'll also add it at some point in the future. So let's draw this. I'll of course be able to just delete everything and try again. So let's try something like this. Okay, so that would be pointing over here, and then the tip, something like that. Looks alright, though I would like to try it again. So select this, delete, and let's try again. Honestly, I'm a bit more happy with how it was last time. Let's give it a third shot. I might do this as a time-lapse or something. Now this side is a bit too harsh, I'd say. So let's select this and maybe a bit more. And let's put it like that. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. So now, what else? For example, let's try, I'd like to have some sort of a backdrop of this arrow. It kind of looks a bit flat. So let's actually duplicate the layers. And I will do a box select on the now bottom layer. We will select this. Okay, and we will move it slightly for a few pixels, like that. Okay, that should be good. And we will do a bucket fill. So I'll set the tolerance to 0 since it's all the same color. I'll do a bucket fill of, let's say, this semi-transparent black. So if I click on here, we have this semi-transparent black. Not sure how happy am I with that. So if it's black, then I might actually go with black, pure black. I think it looks a bit better. Or at least some darkish tint of blue. Yeah, I'm happy with this. Okay, so we'll click on finish. And now we have a backdrop for this arrow. Very cool. Okay, and the final thing that I'd like to add would be, for example, a circle, or an ellipse that selects or showcases this section of the thumbnail. So I will, first of all, I'll save. Okay, just to be sure. And let's add a new layer, and I'll get a bit creative for this. So I'll do a circle select like this. Maybe. Does that look okay? Maybe just select this portion. I'm not really sure what do I want to select exactly. I just want to showcase that circle selection works, I guess. So let's select this portion. And now the way I'm gonna make a circle is a bit creative. We'll go to a bucket fill tool, select, let's say, a cyan color. Let's fill this in, click on finish, and now let's do another circle select that will cut out the center of it so that it becomes, I guess, a circle with an outline if we're speaking in SFML terms. Let's get this right, maybe a bit smaller. Okay, that seems fine. And we'll do a delete. Okay, so technically that is a selection, very cool. That is a circle, right? Let's also do the same shadow thing. Let's duplicate layer and let's select this and move it slightly. Like that. Okay, and let's also on the... Oh, I messed up the layers, I think. Not a big deal. So I will choose a bit darker color right here. Okay, yeah, I messed up the layers. Okay, we'll click on finish and we'll swap the layers. So move layer down. There we go. And we successfully swapped the layers. Okay, so I am pretty happy with how this looks. It is quite simple. But yeah, I think this will be good enough for this thumbnail. Why not? I don't honestly have any other ideas what to add. Maybe, let's save again. Maybe add a... I mean, I could add, I guess, the same drop-down effect with the shadow effect, whatever, to the screenshot and to the logo. Yeah, sure, why not? Okay, so we will duplicate this layer and let's move the pixel slightly. Though this is already black, so I'm not sure what color to put it. Yeah, no, that doesn't make much sense. What can I do? What can I do? You know, I think this will be fine. Fine for now, yeah, I'm happy with this. Okay, let's also save as JPEG because YouTube likes a bit smaller thumbnails, so we'll call this _JPEG. Quality can be 80%, I guess. And okay, and that's it. So there we go, that is a basic thumbnail in my image editing software. Really cool. So yeah. So that is basically it for this video. It was quite a fun project, I have to say. I'd like to continue working on it and add new versions. So this will be released as Galaxy version 0.1.0. It will be available on my itch page for anyone to try out, and its source code currently in its 0.1.0 version is available on GitHub. I'll also leave a link for that in the description if you'd like to learn something. I don't know, the project is about 10,000 lines of code currently. I also have a few things that I plan to do in the future. Let me know if you maybe like to see devlogs of this project in particular. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Hopefully by the version 1.0.0, I'd consider this image editor to be a replacement that I can use every day. Currently it's not in that stage. For example, one big feature missing is undo or redo support. Without undo, if you make a mistake, you're kind of screwed. So yeah, I'd like to reach the version 1.0 by the end of this year. I don't know if it's possible, but I'll give it my best shot. So anyways, that is all from me for now. As always, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you like this. And yeah, I don't know what's next. We'll see.